There's a moment before any war, before any deal, where a man like me has already accepted the outcome, not because of arrogance, but because the pieces were placed long before anyone noticed the board. People think victory comes from shouting, from showing teeth, but the real winners are the ones who sit in silence, watching others reveal themselves. When a man decides he's already won, he stops rushing, he stops reacting, he simply waits. And by the time the rest wake up to the game being played around them, it's already too late to change a damn thing. Listen carefully, because I won't repeat myself. You want to understand power? Then start with silence, not the poetic kind, the dangerous kind. The kind that makes people shift in their seats, the kind that forces the truth out of their mouths before you ever ask for it. Most of you speak too quickly. You rush to fill the air because you're terrified of what it reveals about you. People like me, we don't rush. We let the room breathe and choke on its own noise. You walk into a negotiation, into a conflict, into any room where stakes exist, and the first thing you must do is nothing. You think stillness is weakness. Wrong. Stillness is pressure. It forces the other side to show their cards simply because they can't handle the weight of waiting. Let me tell you what silence really does for you. It exposes insecurity. It exposes lies. It exposes the man who thought he was in control until you walked in and didn't give him anything. No reaction, no emotion, no sound. When you say nothing, they start explaining themselves. When you hold your stare, they start doubting their position. When you let them speak first, they reveal what they fear most. You don't need to be loud to be dangerous. Loud men depend on noise to hide their empty hands. A silent man? He terrifies people because no one knows what he's holding, what he's planning, or what he's willing to do. I'm telling you this directly, your silence is your weapon. But only if you learn to control it. Don't break it too early. Don't waste it on every fool who demands a response. Reserve it for the moments that matter. The moments where the next thing you say shifts the entire direction of the room. When someone challenges you, don't answer immediately. Let them hear their own question again in the echo of your silence. Let them second guess it. Because silence does something else too. Something far more important. It makes people believe that you know more than you're saying. And that is how fear begins. Not the fear of violence, not the fear of guns or blades, but the fear of uncertainty. The fear of what you might be capable of. That fear works for you even when you're not in the room. So here's what I want you to understand. Control the silence and you control the pace. Control the pace and you control the decisions. Control the decisions and you control the outcome. That is how power is taken quietly, by refusing to give away your thoughts cheaply. Every time you speak without thinking, you hand someone else ammunition. Every time you react instantly, you let them read you. Every time you rush to defend yourself, you admit you're uncertain. Stop doing that. From now on, when you enter a room, you say nothing. You let them speak. You let them reveal. You let them break themselves. And only when the moment is perfect, when every eye is already on you, waiting, that's when you speak. Not to impress, not to threaten, just to remind them who the real power belongs to. You want to win before the fight? Then you need to understand something most people never will. The real work happens when no one can see it. Invisible, quiet, unnoticed. That's where victories are built. Everyone thinks strategy is about what you do in the open. They're wrong. I'm speaking to you directly now. Because if you ever want to control outcomes, you need to stop living in reaction and start living in prediction. Preparation isn't planning. Planning is what amateurs do. Preparation is different. Preparation means you influence the board before the pieces even move. Let me explain how. First, you must know the terrain before you take a single step on it. And I don't mean geography. I mean people, their habits, their weaknesses, their routines, their desires, their fears. You collect information quietly, piece by piece, until you can predict their moves better than they can. Most people walk blindly into situations and call it courage. It's not courage, it's stupidity. Courage is walking in with every angle mapped out, every possible shift accounted for, and a quiet confidence that whatever happens, you're ahead. To prepare invisibly, you start by observing, not interfering, not influencing, just watching. You watch how people talk when they're comfortable. You watch who they trust and who they avoid. You watch what makes them nervous, what makes them confident, what makes them reckless. Information is oxygen. The more you have, the longer you can breathe when the air gets thin. Second, You create conditions without anyone noticing your fingerprints, a word placed here, a rumor positioned there, a suggestion offered casually, disguised as small talk. You're not forcing outcomes. You're nudging them, guiding them, steering them without being seen. You don't shove a man into a mistake. You let him walk into it proudly, believing it was his own idea. That's invisible preparation. You want people predictable? Make them believe they're in control. People who think they're free make the easiest patterns to read. Third, you must prepare alternatives, not as backups, but as traps. A predictable opponent is a gift, but an unpredictable one? You don't fear him. You box him in by giving him choices that all lead back to you. 3 doors, all locked from your side. You push him into a corner where his unexpected move is still part of your expectation. Invisible preparation is not luck. It's the quiet engineering of outcomes. Fourth, you must strike long before the strike happens. Let me explain that clearly. Everyone sees the moment where things fall apart. The betrayal, the collapse, the confrontation. But the real moment that mattered happened weeks or months earlier, in silence. When you gathered the right information, when you placed the right man in the right room, when you shifted the smallest detail that would later cause a landslide. The world only notices the explosion. They never notice the fuse. Good. Let them stay blind. Blind people make noise. Prepared people make moves. Fifth, you don't announce anything. You don't show anything. You don't warn anyone. Silent preparation is your shield. The moment others see what you're doing, they can interfere. So you keep your intentions buried beneath a calm exterior. Let the world think you're resting. Let them think you're weakened. Let them think you're distracted. Meanwhile, you're building something they'll be forced to respect later. Invisible preparation means the enemy won't know you're 3 steps ahead until the floor breaks beneath them. And by then, it's too late to climb out. Now listen closely. This part matters. You must accept that true preparation requires patience most people don't have. Everyone wants fast power, fast control, fast results. But strategy is slow, quiet, disciplined. If you're impatient, you'll reveal yourself. If you reveal yourself, you lose the advantage. Patience isn't sitting still. Patience is working silently while everyone believes you're idle. Lastly, remember this. When the moment comes, when you finally move, it shouldn't look like effort. It should look like destiny. People will say it was luck. They'll say it was coincidence. They'll say they never saw it coming. Exactly. Preparation is not meant to be seen. It's meant to be felt when the consequences arrive. And if you do it right, when the dust settles, people will stare at you with the same question every enemy has asked me. How the hell did he do that? And the answer is simple. You did the work long before they started paying attention. And you made damn sure they never saw it happening. Look at me and listen closely. Because this part separates the ones who survive from the ones who get eaten alive. Every man you meet is a ledger, a walking account book with entries written all over him. And if you learn to read those entries, you'll never be surprised by anyone again. People pretend to be complicated. They're not. They want simple things: power, validation, money, safety, attention, revenge, respect. Strip away the noise, and every man is driven by one of these. Your job is to identify which one controls him. Let's start with the basics. A man's posture is the first line in his ledger. Straight spine? He wants to appear strong. Hands restless. He's unsure. Eyes darting. He's hiding something. Stillness? He's either confident or dangerous. And you'll know which one within seconds. You don't need words to understand a man. You need observation. Most of you listen to what people say. Mistake. Words lie. Behavior doesn't. Confidence can be faked, but consistency cannot. So you watch for patterns. Patterns reveal truth. Here's the method. Simple, but not easy. 1. Identify the man's fuel. What drives him? Greed? Ego? Fear? Pride? Loyalty? Desperation? You can find it in his first reaction to pressure. Push him lightly, contradict him, delay him, challenge him, and look at the crack that forms. That crack is his core. Identify what he fears losing. Every man has something he protects with more intensity than anything else. Sometimes it's money, sometimes reputation, sometimes the illusion that he's respected. When you find the thing he's terrified to lose, you've found the lever you can pull whenever you want. 3. Identify what he wants others to believe about him. This is crucial. Whatever a man tries hardest to project is usually where he's weakest. A man who flexes dominance is insecure about being insignificant. A man who talks of loyalty is afraid of betrayal. A man who brags about wealth fears poverty. A man who boasts of strength fears being exposed as weak. You read the performance, not the words. You read the exaggeration, not the story. 4. Watch how he treats people he doesn't need. That tells you the truth of his character. If he's rude to the powerless, he's controlled by cruelty. If he flatters the powerful, he's controlled by ambition. If he's silent around everyone, he's hiding something bigger than his ego. Every interaction is an entry in the ledger. 5. Pay attention to what he avoids. People avoid things they fear. They avoid conversations, responsibilities, specific topics, certain names. If a man avoids eye contact when talking about loyalty, he's betrayed someone. If he avoids timelines, he's lying. If he avoids answering simple questions, he's negotiating with himself inside his own skull. Silence isn't the only useful tool. Avoidance is a confession. 6. Observe how he responds when he thinks no one is watching. That's the purest version of him. The confident ones relax. The guilty ones scan the room. The ambitious ones calculate. The insecure ones shrink. The dangerous ones stay exactly the same, because their true self never leaves the surface. Now listen carefully. This part matters more than anything I've said so far. You read men not to intimidate them. You read them to control them. When you understand a man better than he understands himself, you own every decision he'll make in your presence. You'll know when he's bluffing. You'll know when he's desperate. You'll know when he's lying before he says the lie. You'll know when he's about to break before he realizes he's cracking. People think control comes from power. It doesn't. Control comes from understanding. The more predictable a man is, the more power you have over him. And every man becomes predictable once you learn to read his patterns, his fears, his desires, his cracks, his mask. So the next time you meet anyone, don't listen to their words. Listen to their silence. Listen to the tremor in their tone. Watch their hands. Watch their eyes. Watch the hesitation between sentences. And you'll see it, the ledger opening itself to you. Every page, every weakness, every motive, every lie. Read it well. Because a man who can read others rarely ever loses. Look at me and understand something clearly. Mercy is not kindness. Not in my world. Not in yours either, if you're honest. Most of you think mercy means softness, weakness, a gentle heart trying to rise above conflict. But real mercy, the kind that matters, is a tool, a tactic, a blade you don't have to sharpen because emotion sharpens it for you. I'll tell you this directly, the right mercy, given at the right moment, can control a man more effectively than fear or violence ever will. Let's break it down, because you need to understand how this actually works. 1. Mercy creates debt. When you spare a man you could have destroyed, you inject something into his bloodstream, obligation. He won't say it out loud. He won't look at you and admit he owes you his life, his reputation, his freedom, whatever it is, but he'll feel it every time he sees you. And obligation is more powerful than intimidation. Fear fades with time. Pain heals. But a debt lingers. A debt whispers in a man's mind when he tries to sleep. A debt controls him quietly. That is why calculated mercy works. 2. Mercy confuses your enemies. Most people expect retaliation. They expect anger. They expect violence. So when you respond with restraint, not softness, not friendship, just restraint, you disrupt the entire rhythm of their expectations. Confusion is leverage. When they don't know what you're doing, they can't predict your next move. And if they can't predict you, they can't prepare for you. Mercy takes away their clarity. 3. Mercy is a mirror. When you spare someone, you force them to face themselves. You make them see the difference between who they are and who you are. You show them strength without shouting, dominance without brutality. A man who tries to destroy you but ends up at your mercy. He sees the truth. You had the power all along, and that realization breaks something inside him. You didn't need to hurt him. You didn't need to finish him, because he already understands that you could have, and that's the part that stays with him. 4. Mercy is a setup, not an ending. Mercy isn't closing the book. It's turning the page to the chapter where he becomes useful. You don't spare a man because he deserves it. You spare him because he will serve a purpose later. Willingly, unwillingly, consciously, or blindly. Sometimes the man you spare becomes an informant. Sometimes he becomes a shield. Sometimes he becomes a distraction. Sometimes he becomes proof to the world that you're not predictable. It is investment. 5. Mercy makes you unreadable. Listen carefully. Unpredictability is one of the strongest advantages you can have. When people can't understand you, they fear you in a different way. Not because they expect violence, but because they don't know when it will come, or if it will come at all. Your mercy keeps them off balance. They won't know whether you'll spare them again, or destroy them without warning. Ambiguity is power. 6. Mercy must be sparing, not habitual. Don't misunderstand me. If you show mercy all the time, it loses value. People start expecting it. They start thinking it's who you are, instead of a tool you're choosing to use. Mercy works only when it's rare, and when the person receiving it knows damn well they didn't earn it. That's why it becomes leverage. 7. Mercy must always cost them. Let him walk away aware that he was in the palm of your hand and that you chose not to close it. That awareness shapes future decisions. It shapes loyalty. It shapes fear. It shapes obedience. So remember this. Violence shows strength for a moment, but calculated mercy? It shows strength that lasts. Not softness, not kindness, control. Use it when it benefits you, and only then. Look at me and understand this properly. Fear isn't built by shouting. Fear is built by control. And real control never needs volume. You want to know how to make a room fall silent the moment you enter it. How to make men twice your size hesitate before speaking. How to make opponents rethink their confidence with nothing but a glance. Then listen carefully, because I'm about to tell you the truth most people never learn. If you need to raise your voice to be feared, you've already lost. 1. Fear begins before you speak. Fear isn't created when you talk, it's created before you talk. People study your walk, they study your eyes, they study the calm you carry. When you enter a room and your heartbeat is steady, your face unreadable, your attention precise, people feel it. And fear is a feeling, a quiet one, a cold one, a very honest one. You don't need to declare power, you need to project inevitability. A man who looks like he's already decided the outcome of every conversation. That's the man people fear. 2. Speak slowly, not softly. There's a pace you must learn. Slow, steady, deliberate. Fast talkers sound nervous. Slow speakers sound certain. When you speak slowly, every word becomes heavier. Every pause becomes pressure. Every silence becomes a question they're desperate to answer. Fear is not in the volume. Fear is in the weight. When you choose your words with intention, people start wondering what you're holding back, and the unknown always outweighs the loud. 3. Make eye contact only when necessary. Look at people directly only when you need to, not constantly. A man who stares too much is trying too hard. A man who avoids eye contact is already defeated. But the one who looks at you at the exact moment it matters, the one who responds with stillness instead of reaction, that man becomes unforgettable. Your eyes should say 2 things. I'm not impressed. I'm not concerned. 4. Don't explain yourself. Weak men justify. Weak men defend. Weak men try to prove. You don't explain a damn thing unless you choose to. When someone challenges you and you respond with a simple, controlled line. I heard you. I understood. That won't happen. You won't do that again. Without elaboration, without argument, without energy. They feel the message in their bones. The silence after your sentence is more terrifying than any scream. 5. Show precision, not emotion. Emotion is noise. Precision is power. Fear grows when people see you act with surgical calm. You make decisions without hesitation. You handle conflict without panic. You respond to provocation like you've seen it 100 times already. When someone insults you and you don't react, that's fear. When someone threatens you and you simply adjust your cigarette, that's fear. When chaos rises and you remain perfectly centered, that's dominance. People fear those who cannot be shaken. Interrupt slowly, not forcefully. If you need to cut someone off, don't raise your voice. Just speak deliberately, mid-sentence. A quiet interruption carries more power than a shouted command because it sends one clear message: you didn't earn the right to finish. And men remember that. 7. Use reputation as a silent weapon. Fear works best when people know what you're capable of without you having to demonstrate it. You don't tell stories, You don't list past victories. You don't brag. Others will do it for you. Reputation is the currency of fear. It enters the room before you do and stays long after you've left. A man with a quiet reputation is more dangerous than a man with a loud one. 8. Never threaten. State. Threats are cheap. Declarations are final. You don't say, "I'll do this to you." You say, "This is what will happen." No emotion. No noise. Just certainty. Fear is born not from what you might do, but from the fact that you sound like a man who already decided. Final truth. Understand this. Volume is for the insecure. Control is for the feared. If your voice is steady, your gaze is calm, your presence is solid, and your words are few, you won't need to raise your voice. Men will lower theirs. There is a particular elegance in power that doesn't advertise itself. The kind of power that doesn't need to roar or posture, because it already occupies the psychological high ground. Control wrapped in silk instead of iron, hidden behind the illusion of their own triumph, because nothing disarms a rival, a manipulator, or a potential threat more effectively than their own ego. The strategy begins with a simple truth. Most people crave the feeling of superiority more than they crave the superiority itself. They want the applause, the validation, the illusion that their decisions shaped the environment. So you give them just enough of that illusion to keep their guard down. You allow them small victories, carefully measured, never dangerous, so they begin to relax inside the space you've quietly built around them. This is not weakness. It is architecture. When someone believes they're outsmarting you, they stop watching your hands. They stop calculating your moves. They start indulging their vanity. They talk more, reveal more, and underestimate more. They expose the soft parts of their defense because they assume you're incapable of touching them. But every word, every action, every assumption they make while winning becomes a thread you can later pull. The key is patience. A predator lunges only when the prey steps exactly where it needs to. So you lull them into a rhythm, one that feels like dominance to them, but is actually the path you've mapped. You let them interrupt you, dismiss your ideas, take credit, make noise. You don't resist, not yet. Resistance would wake them. Instead, you absorb it with the serenity of someone who knows how the final act will end, because the person who thinks they've already won is the easiest person to defeat. The magic of this strategy lies in timing. You must know exactly when to yield and exactly when to tighten. Too much yielding and they grow reckless. Too little and they stay guarded. You're not handing them victories. You're feeding them doses of confidence calibrated with surgical precision. And when they finally believe the game is entirely in their hands, that's when you begin shaping the final outcome. Their ego will pull them forward, toward overstepping, toward overconfidence, toward revealing the exact vulnerabilities you need. They walk into the trap thinking it's a throne. They lean into the illusion because it feels good, and people rarely question the things that make them feel powerful. What they don't realize is that you've been collecting leverage the entire time. The conversations they thought they controlled, the decisions they thought they imposed, the reactions they assumed you didn't notice. All of it quietly arranged into a structure that now supports your move and smothers theirs. When the moment arrives, you don't strike with aggression. You simply remove the illusion. The floor they thought they built collapses, and they find themselves standing in a position you engineered from the start. You didn't outmuscle them. You didn't outshout them. You didn't even oppose them. You guided them into defeating themselves. And the beauty is that even when they finally understand what happened, they can't blame you without exposing their own arrogance. Pride locks their tongue. They can't admit they were manipulated because it shatters the identity they were trying so hard to sell. So they retreat, quietly, ashamed of a battle they didn't even realize they lost until it was already over. It's not about deception, because the strongest position you can ever occupy is the one your opponent walks into willingly, thinking it belongs to them. And by the time they realize it doesn't, you're already the one holding the door closed behind them. The most devastating shift in any psychological game is never the one that comes with noise, confrontation, or grand announcements. It's the quiet pivot, subtle, invisible, almost gentle, that marks the moment the balance of power silently swaps hands. This is the turning point they never see. Not because it's hidden, but because it's crafted to look like nothing at all. The trick lies in understanding human perception. People only notice the events they expect to notice. They look for dramatic reversals, raised voices, visible threats, or clear changes in behavior. They look for evidence of conflict, but a true strategist never gives them that. You don't give them reason to prepare, defend, or question. You don't broadcast the shift. You let them stay comfortable, inside the illusion that the dynamic hasn't changed. It's a subtle recalibration of your posture, your attention, your tone. It's the moment you decide, internally, that the game is yours, even though you haven't yet moved the final piece. They feel nothing. You feel everything. Once that moment arrives, you no longer respond emotionally. Emotion clouds judgment and reveals intent. Instead, you become analytical, quiet, observant, unmovable. Your detachment isn't hostile, it's strategic. You watch more than you speak. You listen more than you reveal. You let them talk themselves into the exact corner you've prepared, because the turning point is never an action. It's a shift in control. Up until now, they may have thought they were steering the situation, asserting dominance, manipulating outcomes, or guiding the narrative. But the beautiful irony is that their confidence has been your greatest resource. While they were focused on performing power, you were studying their patterns, their flaws, their buttons, the small cracks in their armor they assumed were invisible. And when the turning point arrives, you begin using their own rhythm against them. They keep behaving as if nothing has changed. They think they're still leading. They think they still have influence. But each time they push, you redirect. Each time they assume, you allow them to assume incorrectly. Each time they act out of ego, you let it guide them deeper into a place where their options shrink and your position expands. What's most fascinating is that they often accelerate their own downfall during this phase. They misread your calm as weakness. They misinterpret your silence as surrender. They confuse your lack of resistance with lack of ability. Their ego becomes the engine of their miscalculation. And then comes the moment after the moment, the realization. It doesn't happen instantly. It arrives gradually, like dawn light leaking under a door they didn't know was there. They notice something small at first. Their usual tactics aren't working. Their attempts at influence fall flat. Their words don't sway you. Their confidence no longer intimidates. The reaction they expected from you never comes. And that's when the discomfort begins. They start over-explaining. They start repeating themselves. They start trying harder to regain the ground they didn't realize they lost. But the more they scramble, the clearer it becomes, to them and to you, that the power they believed they had was temporary, borrowed, fragile, and now it's gone. You didn't take it. You simply stopped feeding it. The real brilliance of the unseen turning point is that when the final outcome reveals itself, when the dynamic flips completely, they can't identify the moment it happened. They never saw the turning point, so they never prepare for it. And that is the essence of psychological mastery, the ability to transform a situation without ever appearing to touch it, to shift the ground beneath someone while they keep walking, unaware that the earth has already changed shape. By the time they notice the new landscape, you've already charted the map, built the walls, and found the exit. They're still trying to understand what happened. You've already moved on. There's a moment in every power struggle when the entire game shifts, quietly, cleanly, without ceremony. And the remarkable part is this: the person on the other side never realizes it's happening. They don't feel the ground move beneath them. They don't sense the temperature change in the room. They don't detect the silence tightening around their decisions. Because the turning point isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It isn't something a normal man can see. It's something you decide. A true strategist never announces when he takes control. He simply stops giving the other side the illusion that they ever had any. It starts with a subtle internal shift. You stop reacting and you start observing. You stop engaging emotionally and you start measuring. You let them talk, thinking their words hold weight. You let them act, believing their actions matter. You let them believe the situation still listens to them. That belief is the rope with which they tie the noose themselves. People expect turning points to look like explosions, arguments, confrontations, threats, ultimatums. That's how amateurs think power works. They think dominance requires noise. They think control requires force. But real power prefers silence. Real control hides behind calm eyes and quiet decisions. So when the turning point arrives, it hides inside something ordinary. The way you sit back a little, the way you slow your breathing, the way you answer with less than they expected, the way you look at them, not aggressively, not submissively, but as if you already know the ending of a story they haven't finished reading. They don't notice it because humans are blind to what doesn't fit the pattern they expect, and you never give them a pattern break big enough to trigger alarm. From that moment forward, your actions become intentional, not reactive. You start choosing silence where you previously spoke. You start choosing slight misdirection where you used to clarify. You let them repeat themselves. You let them over-explain. You let them display their insecurity disguised as confidence. Eventually, they reveal everything they think is hidden, simply because they no longer feel the need to protect it. They still think they're winning. They still think the room bends in their direction. They still think your calm is softness, your silence is uncertainty. But the turning point has already passed, and they were too absorbed in themselves to notice. When they feel comfortable, they expose ego. When they expose ego, they expose weakness. When weakness becomes visible, leverage becomes effortless. They push harder, thinking they're pushing you backward, not realizing all the movement is coming from them. You haven't budged an inch. They're the ones drifting into the position you wanted them in all along. Then, slowly, quietly, the cracks begin to show. They sense something off. Their instincts start scratching at the walls. Their assumptions no longer land. Their influence doesn't stick. The reactions they relied on from you aren't coming. The patterns they counted on are gone. At first, they try to regain footing with the same tactics, louder words, bigger claims, fake confidence. But the game has already flipped, and they're the last to know. Confusion settles in, then frustration. Then the realization they can't admit out loud they lost before they understood there was anything to lose. And that's the beauty of an unseen turning point. There's no single moment they can point to and say, that's when it changed. There's no event to blame, no mistake to identify, no warning they ignored. The shift was too clean, too quiet, too precise. They simply wake up inside a game they no longer understand. By then, you're already 10 moves ahead. The position is locked. The leverage is yours. The outcome is certain. And they're left piecing together a puzzle, where half the pieces were removed while they were busy admiring themselves. The turning point they never see is the one that's already gone. And the man who controls it never needs to explain how he did it. There comes a moment, sharp, cold, impossible to ignore, when the person across from you finally understands what's been happening. Not the game, not the strategy, not the slow shift in control. No. What they realize is far simpler and far more devastating. They were never the ones steering anything. The trap isn't sprung with noise. It doesn't explode. It doesn't announce itself like some dramatic twist. It's revealed in silence, in stillness, in that exact second when their confidence collapses under the weight of truth they can no longer deny. They look at you differently, eyes widening, shoulders tightening, instincts screaming that something has gone terribly wrong. That's the moment the final setup becomes visible. Not when you create it, when they finally see it. The brilliance of a good trap lies in its patience. You never rush it. You let them walk freely, comfortably, even proudly, into the position you built for them. You guide nothing. You simply allow. Because the easiest person to manipulate is the one convinced they're untouchable. The one who thinks they're smarter, louder, faster. The one who believes they understand the landscape. You don't fight that belief. You feed it. By the time they reach the center of the trap, they feel safe. They feel superior. They think everything is unfolding the way they intended. That comfort, that arrogance, it blinds them. They don't check their surroundings because they don't believe they need to. They don't calculate consequences because they assume none apply to them. And then, just like that, you close the circle. Not with aggression, not with explanation. You simply make the final move you've been holding. Sometimes it's a decision. Sometimes it's a removal of something they relied on. Whatever it is, it's subtle enough to keep your hands clean, but strong enough to destroy the position they believe they owned. Their first reaction is disbelief. This can't be happening. Then confusion. What did I miss? Then anger, because people always get angry when they realize they've been outplayed without even noticing the game. But the most satisfying part isn't their reaction. It's the clarity that washes over them when they finally understand that every step they took was one you anticipated. Every word, every choice, every attempt to dominate was just another piece sliding exactly where you wanted it. They don't lose because you forced them. They lose because they cooperated. They lose because they trusted their own ego more than they feared your silence. And in the end, the trap doesn't feel like something you said. It feels like something they walked into willingly. That's the final setup. Not a cage you build around them, but a path they choose, thinking it leads to victory, only to find out, too late, that it ends exactly where you planned. There's a certain elegance in a strategy that never reveals itself until the moment of impact. Not because it's hidden behind complexity, but because it's disguised behind simplicity so natural that no one thinks to question it. Most people think strategy means movement, loud decisions, visible planning, declared intentions. But a real strategy, the kind that never gets detected until the damage is irreversible, is built on patience, misdirection, and deliberate restraint. It's constructed from shifts so small, so controlled, that they blend naturally into the rhythm of everyday interaction. The first part of that strategy is allowing them to see exactly what they want to see. If they need to believe you're distracted, let them. If they need to feel smarter than you, let them. If they need to assume you're not paying attention, don't correct them. Human beings cling to the version of reality that makes them feel comfortable, and if you present them with one that flatters their ego, they'll choose it every time. That choice is your opening. Their ego becomes your invisibility cloak. The second part is silence. Not passive silence, not submissive silence, strategic silence. The type that forces the other person to reveal themselves, fill the space, expose their intentions without you having to ask. When you hold your words back, people rush to fill the gap with their own assumptions. They start explaining more than necessary. They start projecting their priorities, fears, desires. They begin offering pieces of information they never planned to share. And all the while, you're collecting data. Quietly, neatly, efficiently. The third part is emotional control. Because the moment you react emotionally, you give away your position. You reveal your investment. You show them where you're vulnerable. When you stay calm, consistently, unapologetically, you're sending a message they can't decode. They don't know whether you're indifferent, confident, or simply playing a long game. That uncertainty weakens their footing. It makes them underestimate the depth of your intention. Then comes the most important part. You let them think the plan is theirs. You let them feel like they're influencing you, guiding you, shaping outcomes. What matters is the illusion that they're leading. People trust their own decisions more than they trust yours. If they believe they're in control, they won't look too closely at the direction things are going. And slowly, the path starts to narrow. Not because you force it, but because you stop offering them exits. An unanswered questionnaire, a quiet shift in your tone, a moment of deliberate indifference to something they expected you to react to. None of these actions seem meaningful on their own, but together, they change the architecture of the situation without your opponent noticing a single brick move. By the time they realize something is different, the momentum has already turned. What's remarkable is that the final outcome feels inevitable only in hindsight. You can see the exact moments where their choices align with your design. You can trace every misstep they took, every assumption they made, every blind spot they exposed. But they can't. Their mind wasn't operating with that level of clarity. They were focused on winning small moments while you were shaping the entire landscape. That's the difference between someone who reacts and someone who engineers the ending before the story begins. The strategy they never saw works because it respects their psychology more than their logic. Logic can be debated, challenged, resisted. Psychology cannot. You don't attack their reasoning. You guide their instincts. You don't counter their moves. You make those moves feel natural. You don't force a confrontation. You allow them to step exactly where you need them to step. Then, when everything is aligned, you make the move that collapses the entire structure. It might be a decision, a revelation, a withdrawal, a refusal, a truth they didn't expect. It doesn't have to be dramatic, it just has to be final. The real shock isn't the move itself, it's the realization that it was always going to end that way. That's when the questions begin. How long have you known? Was this your plan the whole time? Why didn't I see it? And the answer is simple. They weren't looking. Not at you. Not at the shifts. Not at the silence. They were looking only at themselves, and a man who sees only himself is blind to every threat that moves quietly. The strategy they never saw is the one they assumed didn't exist. The one too subtle to trigger suspicion, too patient to feel dangerous, too quiet to detect. By the time they recognize it, they're already standing in the result, wondering how the ground changed without them noticing. It wins because it's invisible, because it works in shadows where the ego refuses to look, because it turns their confidence into their downfall, and because by the time they finally understand, everything is already too late to undo. In the end, power doesn't belong to the loudest voice or the boldest move. It belongs to the man who sees the path long before anyone else realizes there's a game being played. When you know the ending before the beginning, you stop chasing, you stop reacting, and you stop proving anything to anyone. You move with intention, not impulse. You choose silence over struggle. And by the time the world catches up to what you've already decided, the outcome is sealed. Victory isn't taken, it's prepared for. And the man who understands this never fears the end. He wrote it.